I arrived in Vietnam today, and this time I went with an eSIM. This is where instead of buying a physical SIM card at the airport, for example, you make a purchase online and can add it to your phone directly. Now, the benefits of this are that while some phones allow dual SIM, like two physical SIMs in one phone, mine doesn't. So every time I wanted to make a call or respond to text from people who had my US number, I had to switch out the SIM cards with the two I'd been carrying around. And I kept the alternative SIM card taped to the back of my phone between the phone and the phone case. And it was just very frustrating to deal with, especially when scheduling meetings with people who wanted to just conduct everything with ad hoc phone calls. With an eSIM, you can actually have both activated, where I can choose to send and receive calls and texts from my US SIM and allow data usage from actually both, although I set it to default to the local eSIM plan, given it's stronger in the area. I'll talk at the end of the video about the actual performance. In terms of logistics, you can choose data plans or plans with calls and text too. My plan has just data and I can receive but not make calls or texts with the Vietnamese number. But I always have my US SIM, which I can use if I need to make calls or texts, although calls will incur international charges. Now, only certain phones are eligible as this is like a new feature. For example, the service I used, which was Gigago, before you purchase, they actually list all of the devices that are compatible. I'll share my screen and show you guys what that looks like. Yeah, so here's the device compatibility with Apple. It's mostly anything after the iPhone X. For me, I have an iPhone SE third gen, which also works. 2022 it came out, and it lists which ones for Samsung, Google Pixel, etc. So you can just look through these before making a purchase if just to check if it's eligible. What happens is you go on their website or their app and you make a purchase for the plan that you want, and they send you an email that has a QR code. In Vietnam, for example, there's three major phone carriers. If you go to this is a site about eSIMs. It tells you what you can do and the instructions. And you can also find the carriers in different places. So in Vietnam, Mobiphone, Viettel, Vinaphone, that's like the Verizon, the AT&T, the T-Mobile of America, you could say. Now, I tried initially, I looked at all their websites and Viettel and Vinaphone, it didn't appear to be as English friendly. So I tried Mobiphone to buy data, but it was prompting me to use a Viet number when I tried to buy a data plan, which of course I didn't have. So I decided to look at alternative options. But you can see, for example, you can toggle the language here. Still glitchy because I select English and it appears English, but then it still shows Viet in the top. And you can see different types of plans that they have. And it's actually interesting because, for example, if you go to the packages and then see all, you can toggle like how much you want for each. So if you want like here, let's go to the max one. If you want to go less mobile phone minutes, which I'm not sure if that's international or what, and then you want to go more domestic or less domestic, and then go mostly data, you can alter that. So it does seem like a pretty good service, but either way, I decided to look at other options. So there's apps, as I mentioned, such which they also have websites, such as Holofly, and now, for example, AirAllo, it seemed to be more expensive than Gigago, which I ultimately went with. For example, this is $21 for 10 gigs in a month, which usually local SIMs are very cheap. And then this one it was just an Asia specific. So I didn't want to buy something that was just for broad Asia because I wasn't sure it might have different performance in different countries. And there's a few that you can look at, for example, Maya, Nomad. I decided to go with Gigago because I was on Reddit and there was someone that mentioned using Gigago in Vietnam. And then the website, when I went to Gigago, said the number one eSIM in Vietnam. So I knew that it was good for this geography. So it was a safe bet to go with this one. Now, from the plan I got, it was 10 gigs for 16 days. I'm here for 18, so I might just use one of the other services and buy like two one-day passes for my last 2 days if needed, or I might just use my T-Mobile US data if I don't think I'm going to need it much. But yeah, it's 11.90. I think in comparison to buying physical ones, prices of your concern, I think the local ones are generally a bit cheaper. Maybe not. I didn't check in Vietnam, but I would assume given the prices in the other countries, I remember them being very cheap. But if you're gonna buy one, don't buy it in the airport ever, right? Because they're always upcharging you by a decent amount. Sometimes it could be like 2x or 5x or whatever it is, or maybe even 10 in a harsh scenario. So always just use the airport Wi-Fi, get a Grab taxi, which is their Uber here, and go to your hotel, check in, and then just go to a convenience store like 7-Eleven or Circle K or whatever it may be, and you can usually buy Sims there. Or if not, you can always just ask the people in the hotel lobby at the reception where you can get a SIM card. So for the process of an installation, as I mentioned, Apple has a website for it, and then there's also YouTube videos. So you can Apple support has one. There's also one for Holofly where they mentioned going into settings, cellular, add eSIM, and basically the process for basically for adding it. So you can go through those and yeah, so for me, the process, they did email me a QR code, but there's also other instructions like you need to then manually turn on data roaming in settings after the installation. Then you need to open your messages app. And now there's going to be an option before you to send a text either from your main SIM or your new eSIM, whichever SIM you want. So you need to choose the eSIM. I guess there's an exception for sending text in this scenario and send the code to a specific number in order to activate. And then for it to work, you need to either turn your phone onto airplane mode and then off or restart your phone. I just restarted, just thought it would be safer, more likely to work. Now the important question is like, how is it, right? First, the YouTube homepage loaded instantly. But when I went to Snapchat stories, stories would take about half a second to load before playing, and a few times it paused for like a third of a second before continuing. And then it happened like twice or three times in one story a few times. My initial reaction was like, it works fine, but it's not as good as the local physical ones I used in Thailand, Philippines, Mongolia, for example. But I tried again an hour later, and then everything was loading instantly. So it might have just been my initial installation. I'm not sure, but it seems to be working now. Yeah, that's pretty much what an eSIM is. I would definitely recommend doing this in the future, especially if you're traveling. You can just buy a general Asia eSIM, it seems, and use that. And I know it's going to save the hassle for me of physically switching out the SIM cards, which is so annoying to me. Yeah, basically, it just seems like a better way to do things, but it might be slightly more expensive. Yeah, you can compare the prices yourself for wherever you're going, look up for whatever country prices for SIM cards, XYZ country. But yeah, if this video was helpful for you or save time, open use sort of a new thing, then feel free to hit the like and subscribe button. It'll help me achieve my dreams of financial freedom. So if you want to help a brother out, please do that. All right, have a good one.